Well, like, even if I had to, I don't know.
Yes.
All right, 7 o'clock. Let's call to order. Hello, everyone. I'd like to let you know the board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variance. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request the board table or adjourn a case due to the absence of a full board, you must inform the chairperson immediately after the hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. As you can see, we have a full board tonight, so that means we don't have to worry about any adjournment. And let's see. I think that was it. Approval of minutes for last month's.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Mr. Klatt, seconds.
I'll support.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion passes. There's no old or unfinished business that I know of. Correct?
That's correct.
So then we'll go to the first case of new business. Case number 23-01, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this variance request pertains to 4135 Sheffield Road in Royal Oak. Looking at the subject site, it is located in the one-family residential zoning district and contains a lot area of 11,600 square feet, and it is currently vacant. Just as some background, in July of 2022, the previous owner had applied for a building permit to construct a new house on site, which did meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance, but that permit was never issued. The previous owner had also inquired on the prospect of dividing the lot into 2 individual single-family home sites. However, those 2 proposed lots did not meet the zoning ordinance requirements for interior lots within the one-family residential zoning district. So is looking forward to applying for a variance with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So therefore, you may recall that back in November of 2022, that was the subject of a variance request which was scheduled to be heard by this board. But as you may recall, that meeting never occurred because the petitioner at the time withdrew his request prior to the meeting. Since then, the previous owner sold the parcel to the current owner and petitioner. Now, the current owner and petitioner is looking to utilize the same single-family home plans that were submitted for permits back in July of 2022, but they are slightly modifying them. More specifically, they are looking to utilize the second floor attic as a third floor for additional living space, and the second floor itself has also been slightly modified to include an additional bedroom, which also increases the square footage of the second floor as well. Altogether, this results in a usable floor area of 4,206 square feet for the proposed house. Now, the zoning ordinance does state that no single-family structure can exceed 3,500 square feet of usable floor area. So the petitioner is seeking a variance to waive 706 square feet from the maximum allowable usable floor area of 3,500 square feet to construct a single-family house on the subject site. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is there any questions for staff? Mr. Gay.
I didn't have a chance to look. I know this isn't in the large lot district, but would this size of this lot qualify it as I should have turned my mic on. Would the size of this lot qualify it as a large lot if it were in a large lot district? Do we know?
I can double check the zoning ordinance if you don't mind.
I was just pulling it up too, so I can take a look too.
Mr. Klatt.
So I guess on a related note, it looks like from a lot coverage standpoint, are they allowed 30 or 35%?
On this particular lot, they're allowed 30%. They're still under the 30% cap.
It looks like 25.9%, so they're significantly below the allowable max.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? No, I just have a quick one, just because there wasn't a comparison. I was trying to remember the square footage of what that first floor took up for the previous site that was submitted? Do you happen to have that, or is it?
It was the same square footage. There have been no changes.
Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure, because you said there had been some changes to the second floor in the attic. From what I recall, it looked like it was the same.
Yep. And then I'd also like to address Mr. Gavin's question as well. The size of this lot would still be smaller than what would be required for a parcel within the one-family large lot zoning district as well.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions for staff? All right. Seeing none, the petitioner may come present and state your name and present your case.
Love it. Thank you, Board. My name is Jeffrey Cannell. I'm here along with my wife and my family on behalf of our request to have the petition granted. I'll give you just a very, very quick background. We live in the same subdivision right now. We live at 4011 Yorba Linda Boulevard, which is, maybe you might know, the street that's right behind Shrine High School. We were fortunately looking, we have a large family, going to have even more kids, and just didn't fit in our house anymore. And especially with COVID, my wife and I are now both working at home. So when we bought the house to start with the family, we were thinking, we have three bedrooms, like should be good. But now that we both need office space, we really were looking for a place that we could do that. So we looked all over, and to be honest with you, we kind of had trouble finding a place. And what actually ended up happening is my son, who was just yelling when we took out, I went on a walk with him, and we just happened to find this lot, like, in our subdivision. It's 2 streets away from where we live right now. And I sent a picture to my wife, and I said, hey, what's going on here? So fast forward, we called Rick, who was the previous owner, and talked to him about getting a build. He said, hey, I have this house that looks, I wanted to build right here. It looked great, and I said, but we really need a place for, like, our offices. So he said, well, I have an idea. We can fill in the attic. It won't change how the house looks. It'd basically be the same from the outside. We're just taking the attic space and adding an office space for myself and for my wife. So that's sort of the high-level picture here. I think that it is a reasonable request, given that it doesn't change the outside of the house at all, or the square footage, or the plot, like where the actual where the size of the house. Because of that, I think it would be reasonable to get a variance. In particular, the only substantive changes we're making to the plan is filling in that 3rd floor attic. And it's about 700 square feet, which will be an office for myself and an office for my wife. We're both working at home. So we're basically doing, hopefully, the minimum amount needed to actually, to be able to make the home feel livable for us. And it is, although I noticed the planner mentioned that it wouldn't qualify as a large lot, it is a larger lot, I guess you could say. It originally, if on the drawings, was 2 parcels at one point. It has been joined, so we don't feel that it would be out of place to have a house this size. And in fact, the house from the exterior will remain the same without the variance or with it. And insofar as that is concerned, I think all it would do would be to increase the value of the homes around it. There's nothing about this change versus building a house that would be permitted under 3,500 square feet that I think would cause the neighbors or anyone else in the neighborhood to be to have any undue justice done unto them. And so because of that, given the unique circumstances, the size of the plot, the fact that the variance that we're asking for deals only within the interior, we would ask that the board approve our variance. So we're happy to answer any other questions.
Is there any questions for the petitioner? Yes, Mr. Gavin.
And this is actually more for staff again, just to make sure that kind of pointed out for the record, and it was noted in the findings here, the report. But it is true that if they were not requesting to fill in this attic, it would otherwise meet all required variant, like, otherwise meet the zoning ordinance, correct? That if they weren't filling in this attic as they're planning?
Well, actually, due to the slight changes to the second floor,
Okay.
even if they did remove the third floor from what they're proposing, it still would exceed the
Okay.
3,500 square foot cap.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood then, so I wanted to make sure. All right, thank you.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
It would exceed that cap by a couple feet, square feet, or do you
It-
know?
It was, I believe, roughly 41 square feet.
41?
Well, that would be with, if we were to remove the attic, I believe the attic is around 700 square feet. So I think the total comes up to 7,200. So I think it might be like 50 feet over or so, because it would then be 4,200 and some change minus 700. So I think if we were not to fill in the attic with the modified second plans, it would be very slightly over. Although to be honest with you, I'm just realizing that right now. Yes. Because I think we filled it in so we could put like the staircase up to the third, like there was a slight change to the second floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Klein.
I guess on a similar note for planning, typically when you add a floor above, the floor joists change in thickness, right? There's extra depth for that structure. Do we know, did the height increase at all? Was there a change to the roof height?
There was
based
no
on
change in the
original?
roof height.
Okay, so the height's still the
The
same.
height's still the same.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll open it up to public comment and then we'll discuss afterwards. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone to speak on this case for public comment? All right, going once, twice. All right, no one. We'll bring it to this side of the board. Any discussion and/or motions? Mr. Clapp,
I'll make a motion to approve.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gavin. Go ahead, Mr. Clapp.
So over the past few years, our board has granted approval for many homes over 3,500. I shouldn't say many, several homes over 3,500 square feet. And I believe that's really these were cases where the lots were much larger. The lot coverage did not exceed 30 or 35%, so they really fit the lot, and they had no impact on the surrounding neighborhood. And I think we have a similar case here. No change from a visual standpoint, no change. It's just in the attic space itself. So, yeah, the roof does seem a bit visually tall, but it's compliant with the ordinance. So for that reason, I'm in support.
Mr. Gavin.
Yeah, the big overriding factor, I know it's a very slight expansion in terms of, like if you remove the attic or whatever, it's a very slight expansion even still. But even with that, the fact that it doesn't change the appearance on the outside, and I recognize that there were a couple, letters from people objecting, but to me, it would be the same size no matter what. And even when the plans were compliant, it would still be roughly, almost exactly the same size. So from that perspective, I don't really have any issue with it. And I think it meets otherwise the requirements for our non-use variances. So, yeah, I'm in favor.
Any other discussion? All right, I'm cross on this one, but I'll probably be in favor of it. Again, this is a green build. We can prevent something like this from not meeting variance, but this is the practical difficulty in that this is a larger size lot, and the footprint isn't going against what would meet on a smaller lot, so therefore, even if we had a smaller lot, footprint would meet, maybe. But there's no change whether they take out the attic or not, so the practical difficulty is they're getting penalized for wanting to use attic space that normally people would just throw stuff up there. They're actually going to utilize it. So I feel for them on this unique circumstance, even at those of their own volition that it's occurring. So because of that, I'll probably be in favor of voting for this. All right. Any other points before we move to vote? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And raise your hand. Yes, sorry. Thank you. All right. Opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. Best of luck to you. All right. Move on to the second case, 23-01. Okay. 23-01-02. Mr. Murphy, when you're ready, for 2321 North Vermont.
Okay.
The site is located on North Vermont Avenue and is located in the city's one-family residential zoning district. Contains a single-family home with an attached carport, as you can see in the photograph, and there is a driveway on the north side of the property. The petitioner is proposing to divide the existing property into two single-family home sites, and in doing so, they would be removing the existing carport and installing a new driveway between the side of the house and, we'll say, the tree that's located on the photograph. The ordinance requires that the newly created lot have a combined side yard setback, so the setback on the south side of the property and the new north side yard setback, that they be together, they be no less than 15 feet. And if we can bring up the survey on page 4, we will look and note that the house is slightly on an angle. It's not completely parallel to the side property lines. And if we zoom in a little tighter, we'll see that if we add at the southeast corner of the property, the combined setbacks of 8.5 feet plus 5.3 feet, those equal 13.8. And then if we go a little further westward, you'll see the note where it says 8.7 feet. If we look at the corresponding setback on the opposite side of the house, that's 5. And that totals 13.7 feet. So at its closest point, the two setbacks combined are 1.3 feet less than the 15-foot requirement. The notice and the report incorrectly states that it's 1.5 feet. It's actually less based on that math that we had just gone through. So the variance request is not 1.5 feet from the combined side yard setback requirement. It's 1.3 feet. The board, as many of the board members know, the board can grant less of a variance request than is noted, so there's no need for us to have to renotice due to the slight error. You would be accurately asking for a slightly less of a variance request than was noted. So again, it's seeking a variance request of 1.3 feet from the combined 15-foot requirement, minimum requirement. I did peruse through a very old version of the zoning ordinance and looking to see if how long we've had combined side yard setback provisions. And they've been around for quite some time. They were slightly different based on lot sizes in the past, but we've had them for quite some time. Now, if we look at the setbacks individually, the south side yard setback is unchanged by the proposed land division. Its narrowest point is 5 feet. It meets the minimum side yard setback requirement for that size lot, whether there's a land division or not. The petitioner is proposing to create a new lot line on the north side of the property, and it exceeds the minimum required for a driveway, and which is 8 feet, and it exceeds the minimum required for the side yard setback, whether there's driveway or not. But again, once we combine those two, they need to be at least 15 feet together, and they're shy by 1.3 feet. So they are seeking a variance request for their intent to create a new lot on the north side of the property. The one thing that we have noted in the report is that years ago, if we can scroll a little bit so we can get the property to the north in the view on the screen as well. The area was platted with a street that was never created as a street and utilized as a street. As you may know, or we can reference just based on that survey, Directly to the west is the Red Run Golf Course. So the public right-of-way does not go through into the golf course. In 1985, I believe the City Commission vacated that right-of-way, which conveyed ownership equally, split down the middle, to this property owner and to the property owner to the north. But for some reason, the City Commission decided to retain an easement. The easement explicitly states that you cannot build a structure within the city's easement. So it allows for driveway, landscaping, things of that nature, and that's exactly what it's used for today. And the petitioner is seeking to create a new lot so that they can build a new home. In order to accomplish that, they need to approach the City Commission after your decision in order for the City Commission to lift that or remove that easement so that they can build upon it. We did check with the city engineer, the Department of Public Service, the fire marshal. All of them didn't have any objection to no longer retaining that easement. Other than a little slight easement on the west side of the property directly adjacent to the golf course, city engineer felt that there may be an underground sewer there from the past, and we should retain that easement. But the bulk of it, the majority of the easement that you see, that driveway, staff has no objection whatsoever. So that will be conveyed in the future to the City Commission. It's not directly related to the variance request, but I can understand how you would see that as the next step in creating a actual buildable lot. So I would encourage the board to focus on the variance request, full well knowing the intent of the petitioner and their need to proceed forward to the City Commission to lift that easement restriction, but to truly focus on the variance request and whether they meet the hardship requirements for that combined side yard setback. And the practical difficulties associated with the criteria. And the petitioner has indicated, and they can affirm when they approach and describe their project, that they want to ask the City Commission for that easement to be lifted, removed, whether they build a new home or not. They intend on asking the City Commission to remove that. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Can I
Sure.
say something just really quickly? Just to clarify, so what the board is looking at is only the 1.3, to waive the 1.3 of the minimum required 15-foot combined side yard setback. The easement issue is something that will be decided by the City Commission. That's not something that this board is going to be deciding about. That's going to be up to the City Commission. It's basically just providing you've been provided with the background information so you understand more of what's going on, but that's not what's going to be your decision tonight.
All right, I saw Ms. Zukin and Mr. Platt and Mr. Pettit.
We're not being asked, am I correct, to permit the split into two lots? Because if there was no house there, it would be splittable, it wouldn't be a violation of the ordinance.
That's correct, but the variance request is necessary in order for them to proceed with the land, with the split, the land division. If the variance request is granted and they put in a new driveway, they meet the ordinance requirements for the minimum lot size for a new single-family home site directly north of them, as labeled as parcel.
So that's why we didn't see the criteria for land splits in staff's comments.
Correct. The two lots, they meet the minimum lot size requirement, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That was my exact question to you. I just want to make sure that it's, aside from the 1.5 or 1.3 feet, this lot meets all the requirements to be split.
And then my question was more, because when I saw the easement issue, I realized that it was not something that we were passing on, but it seemed tied enough to the variance that's being requested that I wondered if it was appropriate for us to consider if we were to approve it, doing a conditioning upon city council removing that easement. But if that's your recommendation to not even touch that, I just want to confirm, is that your recommendation to not condition anything on the actions taken by city council or city commission?
Well, I would state unless the city commission decides to vacate or lift or remove that easement, they wouldn't be able to build on that portion at all. There are a wide variety of scenarios that could happen. They could still go through with the land division. They could possibly come in and ask for a variance request to the minimum width of a house, because there is a portion on that private piece of property where the easement does not affect it. But it's extremely small, so they may say, we'll build a tall, narrow house, and they could come in and ask for variance. So I can't think of every scenario imaginable, but it renders, without removing the easement, it renders it very unlikely to build, or unquestionably the need to have to come back for a variance to build anything.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, petitioner is present, come forward, state your name, and present your case.
Okay, good evening. My name is John Jacoupy. I'm a residential designer, and I'm representing the owner, Brad Baker, and his partner, Derek Smith. They intend to develop this adjacent property, but we'll talk about the variance first. It's an existing structure. It's a ranch. It's not very obtrusive or overwhelming the property. The foundation is already there, so in a way we're kind of stuck. Without the variance, we can't do anything. So that's the main thrust of our argument, is that foundations can't be moved. So I've run into this before, and generally it's a process that's been approved in other municipalities, and we're looking to get that variance in order to take this ranch and kind of fix it up, the exterior, replace the windows, and remodel the interior, and then sell it, and at some point develop the property next to it. And we do intend to proceed with removing that easement with the city commission at some point in the future, hopefully if we get approval here tonight. Take any questions for you.
Any questions for the petitioner? I do. With at the smallest point being 8.5 feet, and that's before you put in a fence there at the driveway, assuming the fences will be nice and put it on the new lot, it's still 8.5 feet. An F-150 with mirror to mirror is 85, basically just shy of 8 feet width. Are you not concerned that it might be a hard sell to try and sell this to someone to have such a tiny driveway to get past that to get to the carport area?
Well, the carport is going to be removed because
right.
it's encroaching on the proposed or the future new lot next to it. So the carport is being torn down. This is going to be a single residence home without a garage, just a driveway, just so they can park their cars in the property and not on the street. So there is no intent to go to the back of the property with anything. I mean, if there's a new homeowner at some point, I can't speak for what they may want to do, but at this point, this owner doesn't intend to improve the property by building an accessory structure in the rear, which would make it a little bit more difficult to get back there.
With the new parcel, would you be, because what I'm concerned with is the lack of combined feet that's been in the ordinance for a while, of it causing it to be maybe too tight across there. Are you planning on having the other house, the new house, be close to that driveway, or are you planning on having two driveways there?
There will be two driveways. The driveway for this property is going to just come up to the front of the house, and it'll stop there. At some date in the future, the proposed or the speculation house or whatever you want to call it, that will have probably an attached garage and its own driveway, so there's no combining the driveways. If you visited the site and you look down the street, I've designed a lot of those homes and Derek Smith has built a lot of those homes, and everybody has to have their own driveway and their own, on their property. I don't think sharing a driveway is practical. And you sell the property and then you get a new neighbor, they may not want to share the property, it creates problems. So every property should have its own driveway. And the fact that we're going to have in the event that the driveway for the potentially new home is on the south side of the property, we're still going to have a green belt of minimum 5 feet between that driveway, the future driveway, and then this existing driveway that we're proposing for this ranch home. So, and a lot of the homes that we've built in this area, none of them have any fences, so we don't intend on putting a fence in there. We like to have it nice and open.
Okay.
All right.
It's more of a question for Mr. Murphy. I think you mentioned this. And aside from vehicle dimensions, did you say that the minimum driveway size is 8 feet in width? Okay. So it would comply in its current configuration. Thanks.
Mr. Robinson, you had a question?
So the driveway for the existing house is from the north side of the house to the lot line is about
Correct.
8.5 feet.
Correct.
So so you're going to put the driveway up to the front of the house. Someone could put a driveway to the backyard where they could put a garage at some point. Is there any reason? Or maybe that's
It's possible, yes.
okay.
Mr. Moore.
One of the criteria for a non-use of variance to be granted is that the chapter's restrictions unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose. This is already a house that's constructed that you're planning to keep there. What is preventing you from using it in its current state? I mean, it's already a house that's built, like you said, it's already there. How do you meet that requirement?
Well, there's nothing to prevent us from using the house as is. The point of it is, as Mr. Murphy, so eloquently stated, is the future use of the adjacent property and to meet the minimum lot width. So they're both 50 feet wide. In order to get both of them to be 50, we're running into this issue where the one setback, the north setback of this existing ranch is 1.3 feet less than the required total side yard. So as of today, I can't say that you can't use this property, but in order to split the lots, we need the variance in order for this house to be viable in terms of meeting the setbacks.
Yes, go
This
ahead.
question is for Mr. Murphy. Just to be clear that this 1.3 feet is being asked for the current existing home on the lot that it's currently on. So the parcel that will be left behind with the house
Yes,
and not for the new parcel.
correct.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right. Seeing none, we'll open this up to public comment. Is there anyone here to speak on this case? Please come forward and state your name.
Good evening. My name's John Little. I'm an attorney and I represent a neighbor at 2403 North Vermont Avenue, Jody Bollert, who's here. She purchased an adjacent property that's divided by a private drive. So when you look at that picture, yep, so this private drive actually feeds Ms. Bollert's property to the north, so to the right, if you're looking at the picture, and that carport for the applicant's property to the left or to the south. I know Mr. Murphy and Mr. Klesny actually recently got a chance to meet Mr. Murphy, and he was very kind and shared a bunch of information. I know Mr. Klesny for a while. They've both been very generous to me. They've invited you to just look at the narrow issue of the 1.3 feet for purposes of the non-use variance and not look at the larger picture of what actually the applicant is trying to do here. And I'm certainly not in a position to tell you how to perceive this, but from my perspective, I look at it as if without the fiction, but in the reality of what is the applicant actually trying to do. And what the applicant wants to do is affect that private drive, which Mr. Murphy described as having an easement on it. An easement, and there is an easement, that was part of a resolution by the city of Royal Oak in I think 1986, but I'm not entirely sure. I've ordered a title search, haven't gotten those documents, but I did a little bit myself, and I found a resolution dated July of 1986 that suggested that's when the city of Royal Oak vacated what would have been a road and held back an easement for public utilities. They also, in my estimation, in my legal opinion, added a restrictive covenant, which is not the same thing as an easement. And that restrictive covenant is addressed in Mr. Murphy's memorandum, and it prohibits any of the adjoining property owners who apparently, I believe the argument is here, were deeded the property by operation of law. That is, I haven't seen all the title documents yet, but I haven't seen anything like a deed that was transferring the property. It appears because it was vacated, because these properties are the adjoining lots, that they became the title owners by operation of law. But there may be other documents. I just don't know yet. In any event, the idea, the big picture here is that in order to build that second house, they need to build on or about that private drive that Ms. Bowler has been using since she purchased the house, and that's my time running out. So I apologize. I'll pick up the pace and say this, that in my opinion, and what Mrs. Bowler is asking for you to deny this request because as Mr. Moore was talking about, they don't meet the qualifications eligibility for a non-use variance. Not any of them, 1 through 4, but in particular, this is something that they self-created, right? They need the variance because they are dividing or want to divide the property, and that's not an appropriate basis for the variance, and based on that, we'd ask you to deny it. Thank you. Sorry I ran over.
Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak for public comment? Going once? Twice? All right, we'll close public comment and come back to this side of the board for discussion and or motion. Mr. Gavin, I saw your hand up first.
I actually have a question for petitioner, if that's
Sure,
all
go
right.
ahead.
Have you given any thought, like, say we don't grant this variance tonight, is it still your intention to move forward with a lot split? And if so, what would you do with the house that's currently on the site there?
Do you want me to speak?
Whoever, you know.
So unfortunately, what would have to happen is that to make that lot split possible, we'd have to actually demolish the existing structure, which we do not want to do. It's a wonderful brick home. It's got great bones. It just needs a little extra paint, touch up, so forth. It's a beautiful home. And so that's how we would have to proceed, is by tearing down that existing home, going forward to the commission, and then not needing to come in front of the board here again.
So essentially, long story short, the lot split's happening. It's just whether or not we're granting the variance to keep that house.
That's correct.
Okay.
We don't. That's not what we want to do, though. But yes, that would be the plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Clapp.
Oh, I was just gonna state, the easement, I know that'll be handled by the city commission as we were instructed. And I'm just looking at the lot split, and I guess I just don't see the major impact of that existing driveway as the homeowner to the north. She would still have that portion of the driveway, more than 8.5 feet, or 8 feet, I should say, for you. So I don't see how it really impacts the driveway if the lot is split. Just my observation.
Any other comments or motions? Mr. Reddy?
I move that we grant the variance.
Is there
As
a
requested.
second? I think I saw Mr. Gavin's hand up first. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, just going by the requirements, I know you were referring to number 8 earlier, but I think the key word is the unreasonably prevent. So, this is a permitted purpose, like dividing the lot would be if it weren't for this, and I think this would be an unreasonable restriction just based on the 1.3 feet. It would do B, it would do substantial justice to the applicant as one of those other property owners in the district. I think it would. C, the plight of the landowner is due to the unique circumstance of the property. Yeah, I mean, like they said, the foundation's already there. They didn't. That's the D. Sorry. C, that it's unique circumstance of the property. Yeah, this is a pretty unique circumstance, right? The house was built not knowing about this. And then, D, it was not related to someone presently having an interest in the property. So, for those reasons, I think we should approve.
All right, Mr. Gavin?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Reddy, and then just beyond that, the fact that the lot split would be happening regardless, and the house would be torn down. The easement dispute, this is not the forum for settling the easement dispute. I understand that it is a dispute, and it sounds like something that may be going a little further, but we're not the body to decide that. Our purview is to interpret and apply and possibly grant variances from our zoning ordinance. And in this case, with respect to the lot split and the setback requirements, the side yard setback requirements, I think we meet those requirements, and that's what our decision should be limited to, and that's I'm in favor of it in this instance. What will happen with that easement is for city commission and for the two parties to decide if they decide to go into any litigation or anything like that. So that's why I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Gavin, you had your hand, or Mr. Moore. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Gavin.
That's okay. In addition to letter A that I mentioned before, looking at letter B, the variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to the other property owners in the district. I don't fully agree with that one either. I mean, we've had somebody speak today, and we also have letters that were submitted. And the alleged hardship having not been created by a person presently having an interest in the property, they bought this property and intend to do a land split. So in my opinion, that they are creating that hardship, so I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Any other discussions? Sukin.
Just in response to what Mr. Moore said regarding letter B, would it do substantial justice to the neighbors? If I had that house to the north, I'd be very upset too, but there's nothing you can do about it because they can tear down that house and build two houses. And the fact that this is a combined side yard setback, it could be 5 feet on either side. And I think the 1.3 is pretty minor. I don't think they're asking for that much. And it's unfortunate, but I don't think there's any reason to deny the variance.
Any other comments? Mr. Platt?
I mean, somewhat related to practical difficulty. I mean, from a setback standpoint, I mean, you can't take 1.5 feet out of this house. I mean, it's an existing brick ranch. It would impact the structure. You can't do it. So, I mean, there's practical difficulty right there from that standpoint, from a setback issue.
And just on a personal note, I appreciate leaving a ranch because for us older people, and I live in a ranch, there aren't that many around, and there are people looking for them. So I do appreciate your preserving that structure.
Any other comments? Well, I right now am leaning against this because it doesn't meet all the variances, non-use variances, as Mr. Moore has pointed out. One thing that I tried to allude to with my questions was in taking down the carport, now you have this house which would probably definitely be in the minority of not having a garage, not even having a full driveway for someone to live at, and I would think that would actually bring down the value of possibly some of the neighbors around there, even though you would have a brand new house next to it that would be much larger. As much as I like trying to salvage as much as I can, it makes the house not as desirable for someone to own if they can't have a garage, if they don't even have more than 2 cars lengths of a driveway, you're more likely to have someone have another car be out in the street parking when they're coming by to visit. We always hear about people complaining there's not enough parking in the streets because there are people parking in it. So between them sort of bringing this on themselves of trying to split it when currently it's not split, as well as that's already 2 things, and usually we want to have all 4 be something that's not of their own doing, something that's a practical difficulty. So by just having half alone, I'm going to be siding against this variance. If there's any other discussion? All right, we'll move to vote. Please make sure you raise your hand. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in favor or against, nay?
Nay.
All right, the ayes have it. The variance has been granted as requested. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Other business. 2022 annual report.
So the 2022 annual report, it's there for the board to review for informational purposes. There's no action to take on the item, but if the board has any questions, staff can answer them. Thank you.
All right. Is there any questions for staff from the board?
Or a comment, I was shocked that it was the lowest number of cases since the recession. So I guess not that surprising though, given the market, but you know, it is what it is.
All right. There's no other questions or comments. We'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone here for general public comment? Going once, twice, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Who would like the mystery motion? Mr. Gavin, I'll let Mr. Reddy do it.
Motion to adjourn.
And
I'll support.
Mr. Gavin supports, just to keep with the streak. That's why I wanted to do it. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.
All right.
Done by 8.